Hello and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm James Currie with the Communications Department here at MCHD. I'm talking to a registered dietitian that I have spoken to many, many times, Claris Perkins. How are you, Claris?
I'm good, James. Good morning.
Well, Happy New Year to
Happy
you.
New Year.
And I know you, as a registered dietitian nutritionist, you're going to tell me all about going out to go buy a treadmill here at the first of the year and how to change my diet. And right now, that we're not talking about that.
No, we're not talking about that.
No, but we are talking about what you need to do here for yourself at the beginning of the year. And of course, better eating habits and a better diet is part of that. Um, and our hope, obviously, here at the health department is that that is something that people keep on, trending with, other than just joining a gym and dropping off by the end of January, right?
Right. We definitely want to create habits and goals that we can stay with and stick to.
So most people would think that, going to see a nutritionist is you're going to tell them what foods they need to eat and how much of this to eat and all this kind of stuff. But it's not like that at all, is it?
It can contain that, but that's not only what it is. So, my role is to get an understanding of what your eating habits and lifestyle look like now. And then, where are some ways that we can positively change that? So I would start by asking, basic questions to understand your life. So how many meals do you eat a day now? What's your work schedule? Who lives in the home with you? Who grocery shops? Maybe things you wouldn't even think of to be important or helpful to me to see, okay, where are some places that we can improve this that are realistic for you as an individual?
Now, we've had nutrition services for quite a while, many years, because we feel that it's important, uh, part of your overall health. I mean, not just going to see your regular provider, um, but also going to see a nutritionist, because as you age, your needs change, your food intake changes, your medicine changes, and things like that. So I know for a fact you are able to work with a provider to formulate a lifestyle change plan, basically.
Yeah. So previously, like you've said, we have been part of the health department for a long time. And now, as part of family health, we have opened up nutrition services for the entire community. So, previously, if you were a patient at the health department, your provider or doctor would send us a referral. We would reach out to you to make that contact to work on nutrition. We still have that process in place. And I have found that patients of mine that are also patients of the health department, it's a really good team because I can communicate with your provider. We can find the best kind of path and solution for you. But that doesn't have to be the case. If you don't have a doctor at the health department, but you do want to see a dietitian, we can now see you as part of family health.
Right. So, like you just mentioned, excuse me, that people can, you know, see you directly. And if you do see something or an area of concern, you can, of course, refer back to a provider to help someone. So that does really kind of make us a one-stop shop, actually. It's just, it doesn't matter what order, see a provider first and then
Right.
you, or either or. Now, we're not just talking about this in January and we're going to drop it and not talk about it for another year. I mean, this is an ongoing thing. So if someone was a patient of yours, they would regularly visit with you, or quarterly, just to check, see if there's any weight changes or any other kind of habit changes. Because,
Mhm.
like you said, and you and I have talked several times about, is, food, people kind of get in habits of eating. So, you
Mhm.
want to kind of educate people on better eating habits. If you're sitting in front of the TV watching a movie, maybe that's not when you should be, snacking on a whole bag of whatever. So some of it is behavioral modification too, through food.
Mhm.
But I know another thing that you do too is an education portion, which you can go into that.
Yeah, so a piece of what you just said is important. So I do like to see patients regularly, check in, how are things going, what's working for you, what's not, because not everything that I suggest is going to work well for everybody. But I follow the lead of the patient. So if a patient wants to come and they just want to talk once, then I'm here to do everything I can for that visit. If they want to check in, which I do prefer, I'm here for that too. So, um, we do, like you said, we educate on, okay, can a patient identify which habits need to be changed? That's what I'm here for if they can't. And then to suggest creative ways to change those habits and mostly just replace them with better habits.
Hmm. And another one of your education portions too, which I do want you to talk about too, is the food label. Some people don't have a habit of reading the food label. Just because it looks like a small bag doesn't necessarily mean it's one serving, right?
Right. Yeah. The label can be really confusing. And the thing about nutrition is that it is so individualized. Every single person has a unique circumstance, preferences, diagnosis, maybe, maybe not. And so while the internet and social media right now is so helpful for getting information, it can be really misleading and tricky because if you see something online, it might not actually apply to you. And so having a dietitian to kind of sort through, okay, which of this is applicable to you, which of this isn't something you really need to worry about, um, that's where I think we have a lot of value.
Excuse me. Now we've got a flyer that is going to be available in all of our family health locations, but on the back side of it, these are the things that you provide. Personalized nutrition, like you just said, that's individualized, for that particular person. One-on-one guidance, so it's you and the patient, working through that. Healthy eating tools, which is your education on how to read the food label. um, what am I missing? What am I leaving out here?
I think that's a really good, overview summary of what we can provide. And then the details within that, again, are so individualized. So,
Mhm.
I can't say, hey, this is the best food or plan for everybody because everybody is so different.
Yeah, and you're not going to tell someone what to do. You're going to make recommendations, obviously, and it's helpful if someone does see a provider. That way, if they had blood work done or something like that, then you are able to see the results of their blood work to say, okay, you need to cut back on this, or you
Right.
need to bump this up. And of course, the whole my plate scenario comes into play, which is an education portion for you to be able to tell people portion control and things like that. So it's very helpful, the visual guide that you give people too, because you know it's the grocery store can be overwhelming.
The grocery store is overwhelming and labels are overwhelming. I mean, you can walk through and there can be a food product that looks healthy based on the label because of the colors they've chosen, the words they've using words they've used, and it actually might not be. And so it does take some critical thinking and it does take some planning. Um, and that is what we're here to help with. But you're right, it's all suggestion. So, I'm not, the patient is in charge of their choices and it's not up to me. I'm just here to help empower and educate and motivate.
One thing I would suggest, if someone is interested in making an appointment with you, and we'll give the number here in just a moment, but leading up to that appointment, I think it would be a good idea for them to create a food diary, maybe to
Mhm.
write down what they had for breakfast, what they had for lunch, and what they had for dinner for a few days or maybe even a week leading up to that appointment. Because I think that would be helpful for the patient and for you to be able to kind of cater that customized meal plan for them, actually.
Yeah, the more information you can provide to the dietitian, the better that we can help you. It doesn't have to be a food log. If you know generally what your day-to-day intake looks like, that's what we're looking for, and I go through that with each patient. So, I've had some patients keep food logs. It is so helpful because I can walk through each meal and say, "Okay, in a perfect meal scenario, this is how I would change this meal or this day." Um, so yeah, I do find that to be helpful. I think it's helpful too as the patient, because sometimes when you write it down, you realize how much maybe you're mindlessly snacking or how many sauces you're using, whatever. These habits kind of come to light themselves for you.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to retain it if you write it down.
Yeah,
You're
I
not
mean, I
gonna
can't remember what I ate for dinner on Saturday,
Yeah, that's right. You're
and
not
that was
gonna
within the
remember.
week, you know?
That's right. So, it's always a good idea to write it down. Um, the education part of it also too is I think you're empowering people as well that after they get to the point where they say, "Oh, I don't need Claris any longer,"
Mhm.
you've empowered them and given them the tools that they need to be able to make those choices. And then if they do need a tune up from you a few months later, they can always come back to see you.
Yeah, and that's the goal. The goal is for someone to graduate and to say, "I've got it. Thank you so much. I'll call you if I need you." That to me means I have achieved my goal as your dietitian.
And one of your greatest successes, of course, is when people actually do listen to you, right?
Yes. I mean, it feels good, and it is when someone listens to me, they are often successful.
Mhm,
And when they don't listen, I'm not gonna say that they aren't successful because that's not the case. It's
yeah,
not perfect, it's not about being perfect, but if you can take pieces of what we talked about and work it into your life, I typically see people's health improve. And that feels good for me. That means I know
mhm.
I'm doing a good job. I'm meeting someone where they're at, and that's all I want for somebody.
Right, I was just, given a scenario like school, when we were all in school, the more you listen to the teacher and write things down, the better you're gonna be on the test. So, I mean,
Yeah.
still applies later on in life, right?
But
So
that's
let's
not
get
to mean that it's easy. It is really challenging to make changes. I mean, food
Mhm,
it's a habit, it's culture, it's family, it's time, it's money, and changing any sort of habit can be really hard. And I think sometimes we build it up in our heads of, oh my gosh, I can't do this until New Year or,
mhm,
whatever time frame that you've chosen. When really, if we can improve one thing just a little bit,
mhm.
that is going to have such a huge help for your health.
Right, and it's not anything like a fad, and it's not any kind of speed diet or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're helping a person's body gradually adapt to a new lifestyle.
Mhm.
Healthy recommendations for weight loss is about a pound a week. Anything
Right.
more than that is too much of a shock to your body, and I know it's certainly not anything you would recommend. So if they
Well,
stick with
studies are
that
showing
guideline,
that the more gradual your weight loss is, the more likely it is to be maintained.
yeah.
And that's frustrating to hear. If you have a large weight loss goal or you want to see results quickly, that is really hard to hear. But from my perspective, if you're going to put all this work in, I don't want it to work for 6 months. I want it to work forever. I want this weight to be maintained and I want you to be healthy for longer than just a couple of weeks or a couple months.
Right, and I think that you're able to, be a good coach to people if they don't see, like a fad diet is like they zoom through this weight loss, and they drop all this weight real quickly. So I know you're there to help encourage if they don't see those types of results. So it's not for them to be discouraged about it. And I think that you're able to educate them on the healthy way. If all they're concerned about is the number on the scale, I think that you are certainly helpful to them for that too.
Yeah, I think I am, but also I have found that if something is too extreme, it's not something that I would recommend, and it's typically not something that I find to be very helpful. And we all have seen, the fad diets, the extreme diets, and it's really more about an overall balance.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate your time here at the beginning of the year. Hopefully, if people have questions and they want to meet with you, which they can do that right now out of order. There's no, they don't have to see a provider first. They can go to see you directly. So if they want to make an appointment with you, they can call our central appointment line at 251-690-8889 and just say they'd like them to make a nutrition appointment. There's you, and there's also another nutritionist here too, Becky Light. So it can be either one of you, and you're going to provide the same information.
And we can see you either in person or over the phone. So we are very available in either of those capacities.
That's right. That is important to know that, you know, um, we are adaptable. So, I mean, if you're not able to physically make it in, you can do that over the phone, which is a very good point that you made too. So, Claris, thank you for being on Wellness Wednesday. And here's to food in 2024, right?
Yeah. Cheers to food.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks.